How's it going, everybody? Nick Antonakis here from ACMi Sports, and I am lucky to be joined by the boys varsity captains of the crew team, as well as their Coxswain. We have Connor Rempe, Ryan Tan, Roger Katina, and Peke Lowe all here to join us. Thank you all for joining me. How are you all doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Good, thanks, Nick.
Great.
All right, cool. So we'll dive right into it. We have some questions here for you today to kind of learn more about the sport of crew and how your upcoming season is going to look with COVID. So we'll start it off with, how does a regular week of crew look during a regular season without COVID? And then obviously, how have these things changed with COVID taking place over this past year?
Yeah, so in a normal year, we would have about 5 on-water practices, each 2 to 3 hours long, and then a erg workout, which is indoors on the rowing machines, all as a team, mostly in big boats, mostly 4s and 8s. And yeah, definitely occasionally captain's practices that we organize throughout the weeks. But yeah, it's definitely changed. I'll let someone else explain how it's going now.
Yeah, so this past fall, because of COVID, we were lucky enough to get a bunch of new one-person boats, singles. So we had, I think five singles and then a couple doubles. And we, rather than all the squads practicing together, we split up into 4 groups, and we were only on the water for about an hour a day on 3 days a week. And then we only had 2 land practices, and we couldn't use the rowing machines like as a team because we couldn't be in that room together because of COVID. But it was still very worthwhile. It was still a good experience.
Yeah, definitely. So now we'll move around to how you all ended up getting involved in crew in the first place. How did it all begin for you guys?
Yeah, I got involved the winter of my freshman year, and anybody watching who's interested in joining, I wouldn't recommend joining in winter. It's the worst season by far. But I started in winter of my freshman year. I was planning on doing playing soccer in the fall seasons and then doing crew in the winter and spring. But I just fell in love with the sport, and I've been doing it ever since then. This will be my 7th season coming up in the spring. And yeah, that's it. I'll begin.
Yeah, and as for me, I started the fall of my freshman year, so 8 water seasons and 4 winter seasons. Or this spring will be my 8th winter or on water season. And yeah, I've done, basketball, soccer, baseball, and all those were nice, but I guess I, tried crew for the first time in fall, and I guess I just fell in love with it and like the team aspect of it, and everyone working together, striving to be as good as they can, and yeah, just fell in love with it then.
Yeah, for me, I actually started in I was looking for a sport or something to do in middle school, and I found a learn to row program at a different club. So I did that for a few weeks or something, and then I think that was 7th grade. And then 8th grade, I did they had a continuation of that, but not actually a team thing. And then once I got to high school, I was like, oh, I want to keep doing this. I really like this. So I found AV crew, and I've been doing it ever since. It's been great.
Yeah, for me, I started actually a little earlier than most people. I started on the fall of my 8th grade. My sister was actually the previous head coxswain for the boys team, and she got me interested in it. And I was a little nervous at first because I've never really done a team sport before. I mostly do individual sports like horseback riding. But yeah, I joined and I ended up really loving being with everyone and being in a team.
Definitely. So you all spoke about kind of the team aspect being a big love of the sport so far, but what else do you love about crew so much?
For me, I have to say it really put me together with a group of people I wouldn't have necessarily have met outside of crew, and it gave me many connections with a very unique group of people. But not only that, being a coxswain, it really helped me gain confidence in myself because I'm very introverted, and it made me realize that my voice can positively impact things, and it's important for me to speak up and be confident in what I said. And I learned the value of like my own words. So I really love like that it gave me a voice in a way.
Yeah, this kind of goes with the whole team idea, but crew's really unique in that you're really only as strong as the weakest member of your boat. So it's super important to kind of lift your teammates up and make sure that they're training just as hard as you are, and or if you aren't training as hard, to kind of step it up for the sake of your team. Because, with a lot of other sports that I've played, at least, if one team member has kind of an off day, you'll be fine. But if one person in your boat is just kind of not in it, you're done. That's it for your race. And I really love that kind of sense of responsibility that everyone needs to feel for both their own success and the success of the team.
Yeah, to build off that, every second matters on the water, off the water, during the race, and during practice. Everyone else behind you and in front of you is relying on you. And yeah, like Connor said, we all push each other to do better and be our best, both on the water and off the water. And I just love that community that we have of just all being in it together and holding each other accountable.
Yeah, so there's like everyone else has said, there's a huge aspect of teamwork. And like Peke was saying, I got to meet a ton of new people that I never would have met before, which has been really great. And it's fun to row, and being on the water, you're out in nature, it gets you outside. It's a great way to spend your time.
Yeah, definitely. And it's described as such a great sport. And it's kind of surprising to me that not a lot of people know that much about it. Why don't you think crew is recognized as much in the media as other sports?
Well, it's the same as like any like long distance, monotonous, repetitive motion sport. Like, you don't see running like in the news that often, or like swimming too much, or cycling. It's always, the team sports that are like doing, sick plays, or doing stuff that's fun to watch. Whereas with crew, it's really just a grueling sport that, it's honestly, it sucks to row because it's just so painful, and it's really all about enduring pain, and there's nothing spectacular about it. It's really just who can endure the most pain during a race, and whoever does usually ends up winning.
Yeah. From experience, I gotta say that rowing, like being in the boat, is a lot of fun, but watching rowing is pretty boring. Like being on the side, on the shores of a race, you can kind of see your team's boat way out there, and wave a little bit or cheer. So I think that's part of it. And then also, like Ryan said, in rowing, there's no like big Herculean individual performances. Like you're never gonna have one person can't chain well, one person can't win a race for you, whereas like I don't know, LeBron James could change a basketball game. It's not that same kind of sport, which is what I really love about it, but is not as maybe exciting or attention getting as other sports.
Yeah, and from my experience at the regattas, it's a lot, like half the time when you're going down in the race, you're on the other side of the river from the parents, because the parents end up being the only spectator. And I know from their point of view, it's hard to tell what boat even is your team. So it's just not a very good spectator sport. And also, besides maybe the Olympics or something, there aren't any big like televised events to get people into it. So I think like you turn the TV, you see basketball, you see football, you see soccer, but there isn't anything like that for crew. So it's harder for people to get into it, just by seeing it.
Definitely. And then you guys spoke about the team aspect earlier and how the team works so well together. So each of you have some sort of individual role, whether that's a position in the crew team as well as leadership roles as well. So why don't we go around and everybody can kind of describe their role on the crew team?
Okay. For a coxswain, so the basics of a coxswain is that we sit at the end of the boat, but we're facing forward because all the rowers are facing backwards. And pretty much what we do is like we can make technical calls, like if there's timing is a little off. we can just like gently remind them and then get them back in the flow with everyone else to keep them like in as one unit, as like one team. And pretty much we just help them like work together on and off the water. We also can guide the boat. We tell them maybe tell the rowers maybe when to put in more pressure to help turning, or like or when to like stop rowing. And yeah, that's pretty much the basics. We just like kind of like a mini coach while the coach is off with other boats.
Yeah. So in a normal season, I would be, I guess, the stroke for some of it. And basically, what I would do is be the pacemaker of the boat, or the person who is in the front. You know, who's the connection between the coxswain and the other rowers, keeping the rate consistent, and making sure that we're in line, and that I'm keeping it steady and following the orders of the coxswain, so that those behind me can, follow what I'm doing.
Yeah. Like Ryan said, in a normal season, an 8-person boat, I'm probably like, I usually row in what's called 5 seat, which is the 4th seat from the front of the boat. So, and my responsibility there is to transfer the momentum from the front 4 of the boat to the back 4 of the boat. And that's where the most power from the boat is generated, from the middle. Balance comes from the ends, but the power comes from the middle. So I'm one of the taller guys on the team, so I get more length from my stroke, and generate more power to keep the boat moving.
Yeah, and for me, I row on both sides of the boat, and I'm not anywhere near as tall as Connor, so I really just get put wherever our coach Andy sees thinks that I would do best. I've rowed stroke seat before. I mean, the main thing I try and do is just, because we're all on a line, you got every single person has to follow the person in front of them as best they can. So that's the main thing. I mean, I usually get put somewhere in the middle of the boat, and I obviously pull as hard as I can, and then just try and keep that, because if someone's off a little bit, then the next person's off a little bit, and the next person's off a little bit, adds up to the lot by the end of the boat. So I just try and keep in sync with everybody else, basically.
So you all described crew as a very grueling sport that takes a lot out of you. It's kind of who can survive pain the most to kind of win a race. So what goes into making a run to succeed in the sport of crew throughout the season? You can kind of elaborate on the road, getting to states, and the head of the Charles, stuff like that, and kind of all the work that you have to put in to get there.
Yeah. So in a normal season with races and boats with our teammates, it's really just getting as many miles on the water as possible. And training, it's really only a third of the equation, right? Like nutrition is the other third, and also sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to recover correctly. And also as Andy says often, like, nutrition is a huge part of it. And he's always giving us recommendations on that. And so in the process of practicing, we're always trying to be at our best and being as serious as possible on the water, and not wasting any time. And just, the minute practice starts, everyone's ready, getting on the water. And oftentimes late fall, early spring, until it's almost dark out. And yeah.
Yeah. I just add to what Ryan said, definitely the sleep, the nutrition, the kind of practice elements, and then also like throughout the years, just developing the mindset that at the beginning of the race, your legs are going to be burning like you've never felt before, and it's just a matter of how, like, can you take it or not, and that mindset's developed through the winter months. For me, like, so we get off the water probably in mid-November most years for the fall season, and then we're headed indoors in December. And those winter practices are long. They're like probably an hour and a half straight on the erg machine, which is repetitive and boring, and you don't have the nice scenery of the outdoors to kind of entertain you or keep you engaged. You're just doing it because like you want to prepare for the spring. And that's really where you develop the mindset of like just kind of grueling, getting through it, going at the grindstone. Our coach calls it like a flow state, just kind of getting to the point where the motion is second nature to you. And then once you get to the spring, you hopefully you've worked hard enough in winter that you can deal with the harder sprint races in the spring, which are shorter, and you have to work, kind of push yourself even harder than you did in fall. If that all comes together, then maybe you got something.
One other aspect, besides just pulling really hard and doing that for a long time, is there's a surprising amount of technique that goes into rowing. I think that's something that not a lot of people know about, but you can pull as hard as you want, but if your oar isn't in the water and isn't, if it goes out of the water too early or goes too deep into the water, that can take away a lot of the power that you would be putting into it. So I just think that's one aspect that's often overlooked.
All right, so then moving to kind of one of the bigger events of the year, we have the Head of the Charles race. That is a worldwide race that takes place right here in Massachusetts. All four of you have participated in it before. If you have any stories about it, or if you just want to talk about how impactful it was for you to participate in such a huge event that this is, you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, first of all, not everybody from AB Crew gets to row. It's the only race where only a few people get to do it. So it's an honor to be representing your team on a kind of global stage. And then it also has kind of this regality about it. It's a very like storied race. So, and everyone takes it very, very seriously. So I remember usually when you race, you get up to the starting line and you're talking with the other boats, you're kind of joking around. It's kind of light. And then at the Head of the Charles, though, we got up to the starting line and it was silent. Nobody talks because you're all just so nervous. It's like, it's the race of your life. So it's like, just, you get in the mindset so quickly, like, oh, this is different. And then the one other thing that I just loved about being able to race there is that it's kind of home field advantage. Everybody comes out for it. And as you come under, there's this really big 180-degree turn, basically, that just kills your legs coming into the last 500 meters of the race. And you go under Elliott Bridge, which is, if you know where BB&N is, kind of the bridge right there. And you're kind of dying, but everybody from AB Crew gets on that bridge and they just scream whenever one of our boats comes underneath. And it's just like, it's deafening, it's wild. And you just feel the support. It's incredible. It's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than Connor. Going under that bridge, you see the Go AB Crew banner and everybody cheering, hearing all the cowbells going, and it's like really like, one of the best moments I've ever had during this sport. It's just, seeing your whole team cheer you on, and you're there with the 4 other people in your boat, all in it together, all on the last leg, and just, striving for the finish. And yeah, it's a really amazing thing.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with what they said. I mean, I'd been to it a couple times before starting crew, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That might be. And then once I started, I was like, oh, that'd be cool to row in, but I never actually thought I would get to row in it. But we put in the work and we got to. It was an amazing experience. And one thing that was kind of a story that happened to us was when we were coming under the turn for Elliott Bridge. I forget. I think there was a boat that wasn't letting us through because we had been trying to pass them for a little bit, and we come under the turn, and I forget if we got really, really close to hitting them or we hit them, but it certainly wasn't PK's fault. They just didn't let us through. So after the race, we got our place and everything. We were like, okay, we put everything into it. We were happy with it. And then we found out that we got a minute penalty added on for hitting another boat. But we were like, that's not right. So we had to go, and I think PK did it mostly, and Andy too. Yeah. And they had to contest the penalty. And it turned out that they had the wrong boat numbers and given us a completely wrong penalty. So we ended up getting rid of that. So it was all okay in the end.
Yeah, personally, for Head of the Charles, it was like really scary for me because I was also one of the youngest people to compete during that time. I was like 14, I think then. And in many ways, Head of the Charles is really like a coxswain's race. There's many like turns and I think Connor Ryan said there's like a 180-degree turn that your rowers really rely on you to focus and watch out for other boats while also like getting them around the rough edges and sharp turns. And also like while doing that, you have to like be screaming at them and keeping them going because their legs are killing them at many points in the race. And it was very exhilarating in a way because I was so young, but also it was very nerve-wracking. I think I went on like a 6-hour coxswain's clinic in the Harvard Boathouse and they like took me around the course, and that was really useful. But yeah, I tried prepping as much as I could, and yeah, it was amazing. And with the penalty story, that I actually didn't notice my team members cheering for us because I was so scared about that boat hitting us. And yeah, I really thought it was my fault. But in those moments, like it's all like kind of flashes, and you're kind of just like you're like keep going, okay, just whatever, forget that. It's all kind of like if I think back on it now, I only remember like little bits of it because I was pretty much the entire time I was just screaming my throat out.
Yeah, definitely a huge moment there. And hopefully we'll be back to having those Head of the Charles races soon after the pandemic, obviously. But for this year, for this spring season, what does this season look like ahead for you guys? Obviously, practices are going to look a little bit different, and so are events, only with singles and doubles this year. But what do you think this season will look like for all of you?
Yeah, there's no racing, or at least in-person racing this season, which is unfortunate. Obviously, States every year is a great event, and sprint racing, which is what we do in the fall, is kind of the most adrenaline-filled type of racing that we do. So it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's great. We aren't usually a team that rows in singles. We are kind of a big boats team, and the singles definitely help you refine your technique better than a larger boat would because there's less room for error. You're not being balanced out by anybody else, so it's just you. But so I guess looking to the future, this season is going to be really helpful for getting our younger rowers get their technique really solid looking to the next season. And then, I mean, for us, it's our senior season for Roger, Ryan, and I. So we're just hoping to set an example for the rest of the team, how to work even when it seems like, there's nothing that you're working towards, that there's always going to be something. There's always the next race, no matter how far it is down the horizon. You always have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Although I thought I'd heard that it was a maybe for some scrimmages or something or racing. But nothing known yet. I mean, really just depends on what happens this spring. So we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, obviously there is a little bit of an unknown when it comes to the season ahead, but now we'll move to a question specifically for PK, who is the coxswain of the team. So with us moving to singles and doubles only this year, it leaves an uncertain future for all coxswains out there. So what do you think you will do this season to continue to improve for next year when you'll hopefully be back to 4s and 8s?
I guess since we don't really go to practices that much. I think the most important part, I guess, is like to keep communicating with the rowers and to keep it like a sense of, I guess, like a group, like a team, in other words. But also, I guess also just, if sometimes what I like to do is like I watch videos of races, but I kind of mute it and I just pretend like, okay, I imagine myself coxing this race, and it kind of just like keeps me in practice since I can't practice with my real teammates.
Yeah, definitely. And then 2 questions for the captains for our last 2 questions of the day. So what do you think is the most important thing you're going to have to do to succeed this season? It's such a weird season with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah. Obviously, working on form is great. Eating well is awesome, and sleeping is, just as great. But what's really going to matter this season is keeping that community, that team aspect of the sport. It's really hard when you're mostly in singles and maybe a few doubles, and most of the time you're alone, just in the water, occasionally getting calls from your coach. But what makes this sport different from all the rest is that's the community aspect of it, and being one with all of your other teammates. And I think that's what is most important about building the foundation for, a team, that everyone relies on each other and everyone knows what they have to do to maintain that group. And yeah.
Yeah, I think, in a normal year, we'd measure our success partially, at least by our results in races. You'd want to see improvement from race to race. But obviously that isn't part of the equation this year. So you have to kind of measure it in different ways. And for me, the biggest thing is always effort. If you show up to practice and you are trying to get better every week, I'd call that success. Because some people just aren't as maybe physically strong, or haven't quite figured it out yet. But if you're at least trying to get better, you're successful. And I think Ryan definitely got it right with kind of keeping the community intact, because it's so important in rowing to be fighting for the other people in your boat, because that's really the only thing that keeps you going during the last sprint of a race, is the idea that, like, I don't know, you care for the other people in your boat and you want them to succeed more than you do.
Yeah, I just think staying motivated, because hopefully we'll have, the way things are going, I mean, we're supposed to have a vaccine, everyone or all adults eligible for a vaccine by May 1st or something. That means there's a good chance for a fall season. So just, we got to keep that in mind, stay motivated. I mean, almost think of it like a winter season. You just gotta keep going. I mean, being on an erg is kind of like being on a single, because you're not working. I mean, at least in the no winter season, you're with your teammates, but you're kind of doing your own thing. You're not in a boat with 8 other people. So it's similar in that way. We just gotta keep going, I guess.
And then a final question for our captains before we move to the last group question. What lasting impression do you guys want to leave on the team? And what do you want to finally accomplish this last year, as you guys said, being your last season on the crew team as seniors this year?
Yeah, I think just want to, when we graduate, we want to leave the team as prepared as possible for next year and years to come, and just, at least for this year, just really make the best of our situation. We were really lucky to be able to get the singles to row in. I mean, if we didn't have those, I don't even know if we would have been able to do much more than just runs or something. So we've been lucky in that aspect, and we just got to make the best of it. I think everyone I've seen has improved a huge amount in the singles and doubles. So just carry that forward and see if we can put that together into the 4s and 8s for next fall.
Yeah, definitely. And just keep building the team and making sure that even though we're in singles, we're all in it together. And it's definitely been a challenge with it being split up into 4 groups and having to deal with all that. But I think what I hope to accomplish with my final season, I guess, is just make sure that while we are in singles, we're all together as a team and not just as individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, like both Ryan and Roger said, keeping the just keeping the hard work going throughout the end of the year. And for me, it's really important to just set an example for not only next year's captains, but the rest of the team next year, that just kind of what it looks like to work hard, even when you might not be working towards anything, just because you want to do so for the benefit of your team. One of the big things in rowing is just it's called keeping your head in the boat. So it's like following the person in front of you, making sure that you're matching them, but it's also like not looking to see what's going on around you. So I think that's kind of always been my approach to rowing, is kind of tune out all the noise, forget about the coronavirus, just work on what you have right now, deal with the situation at hand, and hopefully come out the other side better for it. So I just hope we can set an example of that for the next generation of rowers, because AB Crew means so much to all of us. So we want to see it succeed for as long as it possibly can.
Yeah, and then one last question for everybody here. If there was a message that you could give to a viewer watching right now who may be interested in joining Crew, what would you say to that person who might be interested in getting involved in AB Crew?
I would say do it. I mean, it's a big time commitment. It's a lot of grueling work, but it's really worth it. It's an amazing community. It gets you outside every day. It's been an amazing experience for me, and I'm sure pretty much everyone else on the team. I don't know, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. If you're considering joining, I would say just join, just do it, because there's no like videos or articles or any clips you can see that are going to be glorious. What you're going to get out of it is going to just be from starting it, joining a team, maybe AB Crew, and just seeing the community and seeing what it has to offer.
Yeah, I think Ryan got it perfectly. Like, there's nothing, if you go online and search for pictures about Crew, it's not going to look that fun. But joining the team, it's a big time commitment, but that time commitment gets you some of the best friends you're ever going to have. And not only is it a great workout, but you're going to meet people, some great people, and learn how to work harder than you ever have.
Specifically, I guess for people who are thinking of being coxswains, like you should really join, because like it really helps you with your confidence and like I guess your speaking skills and leadership skills, and you really do form a really great bond with your rowers. Is there's like a sense of like reliance on each other for both coxswains and rowers. So yeah, absolutely join.
And once again, a huge thank you to all of you for joining me here today, and best of luck in your season ahead. And if not this season, for PK next season, next fall, when hopefully you'll be back to coxswaining as you do so well. So a huge thank you to all of you once again. From ACMi Sports, my name is Nick Antonakis. If you want to get involved in the fascinating sport of Crew, contact the team with the information shown on screen.